Testing. Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial.io. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. What's up? I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir Mentor. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor Podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, we have a returning guest, Peter Ullrich, and welcome back, Peter. Thank you for joining me today. How have you been?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been a while, and I'm doing all right. You know, I said that earlier already to you, but I'm unfortunately very sick today. But nevertheless, I hope I can bring something to the discussion.
I'm sure you'll do great. I feel like so much has happened since you've been on last. Let's see. Indie courses, you kind of have put on pause, but you added like a ton of features from, I feel like, our first chat to before you kind of did a feature pause. But I have been enjoying the platform. My course is on it. It's been awesome.
Great to hear.
You have a new little education project that you've been working on, though, that I just started diving into, and it's actually like quite fantastic. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, indie courses, it was amazing. Oh, it still is amazing. And, you know, it's not dead yet. I just put it into hibernation because I realized, like, the problem there is the selling of the project. You know, I have you, luckily, as my first premium subscriber, actually. I was super happy about that. You know, I was sitting in the bathroom, and I just jumped up and ran to my girlfriend and showed her the Stripe notification and said, you know, I have my first subscriber.
That's awesome.
It was a good moment. Yeah, I mean, whenever you ask people who build SaaS, like, they will always tell you, you know, yeah, sure, I have like 1 million ARR now, but what I actually care about, like the last time I was really excited about money, was the first time somebody subscribed to the service. So that's always the one moment where you really see, okay, somebody's actually willing to put money down. So what I've built is, I think, not terrible.
That is a good that's a great feeling, right? And I am proud to be the first subscriber. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, indie courses is great. I still love it. I also have my own courses there, so I'm still gonna build it. I'm gonna expand it, but just right now I have too many other things going on, so it's kind of more like on the back burner. Yeah, I have runelixir.com. What you mentioned already, the new kind of language cheat sheet and introduction to Elixir. So yeah, the idea here is a little bit that if you're new to Elixir and you want to get started with it, you know, I give you this like 30-minute to 1 hour quick introduction to the basics of the language. So basically what you're doing with Elixir Mentor, but then compressed into like a 30-minute just, you know, text walkthrough, basically.
Yeah.
And what I just want to do is, like, so I started working with Rust the other day. I started building some desktop apps with Tori. And with Rust, you got the Rust by Example book, which is really interesting to read when you get started with Rust. And, like, you know, I've been a developer for 6 years now. So when you come to another language, you just want to like learn the basics. You just want to see, how do you do the basic stuff? You know, how do you do logging? How do you create a function? How do you create a class, or like whatever module, however you want to call it. And so that's what I focused on with Run Elixir, where I just kind of give you all these fundamentals and say, well, this is how you create a function. You know, this is pattern matching. This is how you assign a variable. Although it's not very assigning a variable, which people always mention to me, and that's true. It's a pattern match. However, I don't want to, you know, distract people too much in the beginning, so I keep it really simple.
Well, I think it's important to use phrasing and terminology people are familiar with, because you have to assume most likely they're coming from like an object-oriented background, right? So I think it's okay to use some I kind of get cringy when I look at some of my first videos, because I was just starting to, well, I was writing Elixir for like a year, but I feel like you don't work on using proper terminology until you start teaching it.
Yeah.
And so like I would call things like objects, and like, you know, I would do everything from the object-oriented world, and I wouldn't use maps. I wouldn't say maps, or it was ridiculous. But
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's good.
Yeah,
I was gonna say though, like running through it, like I think this is like one of those websites that you need to bookmark. It's like a great reference tool as well.
exactly. And that's the second object, or how you say, mission I have with this objective. So the first one is, yeah, of course, like if you get started with Elixir, this should give you the tools just for the first, like, to write your first application, to just get started with Elixir. But then later, I also want to have kind of like a lookup library kind of thing where if you are already working with Elixir for a while, you can look up things. Like I always come back and look up, how to do persistent term stuff or ads, work with ads.
Mm-hmm.
But then what I also experience is that even people who work quite a while with Elixir, they're not aware of certain things that Erlang, mostly Erlang or Elixir, they offer. And they will never hear about these things unless somebody writes a blog post about that, or they run into this in the code base of somebody else. And that happened to me with like persistent term, for example. I never heard about persistent term until I started working with somebody else's code base, and that person used the persistent term all the time. So I was like, what is that, right? So then I looked it up and I learned about it, and I was like, that's interesting. But in 5 years, I haven't heard about that thing because I never needed it. I never heard it, like never read it. So that's why I wrote. I'm also, continuing to write Run Elixir in such a way that you get an overview of everything that is available to you if you want to do certain things, like in memory state. For example, you have an agent, of course, you have a gen server, you have ads, you have debts, and you have persistent term, and you also have amnesia, but I haven't covered that thing yet. So like, there are all these topics, and what I want to give you with Run Elixir is kind of like an overview of all the available options to you that are available to you. So, that's what I'm kind of working on here. So these are the two objectives. Like one of them is the quick start thing, like 30 minutes to 1 hour, we just get started with Elixir. And the second thing is then where if you're already working with Elixir for a while and you just want to look up what else can I use for this particular problem, then you go there and just have a look around and maybe you learn something new.
I love that. No, I think that's great. But like I'm on the same page. Like if you don't have a need for something, it's very rare you're going to learn about like persistent term or anything like that. Like I wrote Elixir for almost 2 years and never used a gen server.
Yeah.
And then when you finally need one, you have to figure that out, and then you go down a whole new rabbit hole.
Exactly. And also then you have the API of a gen server. I mean, I've written plenty of gen servers now, so I know how to write the start link and init function, all that kind of stuff. But then you go to an agent, you're like, so how do I do a put or get an update in agent again? And unfortunately, with me, I use Z, and the code completion isn't that great. The LSP, like it doesn't work all the time. So I need to go somewhere to look it up, and then I usually go to Run Elixir because I have everything compressed into short code snippets. So also for me, it's just a lookup thing. I'm basically writing it for myself.
I've been trying to use Z. I don't know if it's won me over yet because I feel like the language server crashes every time I open it.
Yeah, but VS Code wasn't much better for me. So
that's same boat.
I know.
I like the UI and like how everything's laid out in Z, but I'm not sure I like the actual writing code experience.
Yeah, what do you use then?
It's like VS Code or Z. Okay. I've been jumping between the two, and like the reason I tried Z, everyone's like, hook Claude into it, and I'm also not the biggest fan of using AI to write code. I can't adopt it. And I don't know. How do you feel about it?
In Elixir, it doesn't really help me, to be honest. Maybe it's a problem with Elixir because there isn't enough code available for the AI to train on.
Yeah.
But I've been using it in Rust and in JavaScript lately, and it is better in these two languages. Rust, I mean, I like it in Rust because I have no clue how to do anything in Rust. I also like what I'm working on is a very light Rust backend, so I don't need to write Rust all the time. But then I just ask it, how do you do X? And then it just generates some code. And because of Rust, like the whole static type system, you actually know whether it works or not. And that is really useful. And then I also use it for JavaScript, and it is not as useful in JavaScript, like in terms of the quality of the code that it generates, but at least it gives me pointers to where
Probably
to look at.
because there's too much crappy
Yeah,
JavaScript out there. You know,
exactly.
it's like the
There's
opposite
good Rust
problem
code.
of
Yeah.
Elixir. Yeah,
There's good Rust code, but shitty JavaScript. Yeah.
that's funny. I guess, yeah, I didn't think about that. It would probably be useful to ask questions more than like ask for code.
Yeah, I do that. I ask like, how would you do this? Like, I want to achieve this thing. How would you do it with JavaScript? And then it gives me a solution. And that is all right. But what I experience is that it doesn't always use the latest APIs, like the web APIs. It uses, technology that is, well, I mean, you know how JavaScript is. Like everything older than 2 years is outdated, it's legacy.
Right.
Yeah, so and you know the code that it was trained on, it just doesn't understand is what is the current status, like what is the current thing that people use. So yeah, I just use it for that. You know, I just ask, okay, so how would you do X? And then it gives me a solution, and then I kind of just look up the solution that it gave me. Usually it's, you know, like an API or like a library that it gives me. And then I look up that stuff and I see, oh, it's actually outdated or it's replaced by something else. And yeah, so that's like in Rust it was pretty stable and useful, and JavaScript is more like an inspiration thing, you know. Elixir, not useful at all,
I
unfortunately.
feel like like with JavaScript, it's probably a lot like Stack Overflow. If you don't have good code smell, you're gonna copy and paste some bad code snippets.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I still remember the funniest thing that I saw like 10 years ago was somebody writing a script where you can just it was in your terminal or in your editor, and you can enter a question like, how do I do X, and it would look for the Stack Overflow solution and just copy paste it into your code, just like that. So you wouldn't even really know where it comes from, but then you can just like code Stack Overflow solutions, and nothing would fit together, but you know, it just dumped it into your code base, and then you have to deal with it, kind of.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I also found like with Zed, like you do your like control enter, right, to prompt AI. I've noticed that like it will like try to like poorly insert code as well. And then you have, like, you're always like cleaning it up, and I don't know. I stopped using it because I was like, you just put this in a random ass spot in my in my module, and now I have to clean everything up. But
actually, like if you select only one line and it tries to give you a multi-line output, then it completely breaks. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a bug that they need to fix it.
Yeah, maybe.
So you always need to select a whole function, or at least multiple lines, and then it can, you know, insert like multi-line solutions as well.
Okay.
But I don't know. Actually, one other thing that I'm using much more, it's not that much code related, but it's more writing related, which is Curlig, I think it's called, Kerlig, and it's a macOS app, and you can just open it with like a shortcut, and whatever you selected gets, you know, pasted into that UI, and I use it always for spell checking and rewriting stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's created by so it's Kerlig.com, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, Kerlig.
Kerlig. Not sure. We don't have do we have a chat? Yeah.
Here we go. I found it. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this one's super useful. I've been using it for like, I don't know, 2 years now. And especially if you write blog posts, but also if you write tweets, and especially if you write in languages that are not your mother tongue, then it's super useful, because you just write anything, you select it, and you press, you know, in my case, like, I think Alt space, and then it immediately pops up. It has the text pre-populated, and you can just with one click, like enter, you can say, fix this, like fix the spelling mistakes or improve the writing. But I never really use like improve the writing, because it's just ChatGPT, or in my case I use Claude, and you know, it kind of rewrites it all in its own style, and I want to keep it in my style. So but the spell checking is really good.
I always find like I'll always try to have like Claude write my social posts. Like I'm like, I don't know what to write, but it's always like it always uses words like this insightful conversation and like all these words that you don't actually use in your normal language.
Yeah, man. It's just I don't know. Maybe that's a way that you can train it on your own style. And I don't know, maybe I could do it because I have a lot of blog posts written. I could just feed all of them into a model and then give me like my style back. That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but I haven't found that yet.
But then you'll forget how to write because you'll just let AI do it.
But I would love that. I would love that. Just like, this is my thought for a blog post. Just go, write it.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, like interesting enough, I started messing around with SEMrush, which is like an SEO tool for and because I've been doing like a lot of like website building and stuff with my my agency, and honestly, they have like an AI blog post writing tool. It's quite good. It's pretty amazing. Like I'll go through it and like fix some words that I wouldn't use in the wild, but for the most part, it writes some pretty good blog posts. Now, I think like technical blog posts, like if you were writing a code related one, it wouldn't be as good. But like writing things to inform people like what SEO is, why you should care about site performance, it's amazing.
Okay. Yeah. I guess if there are lots of other articles with the same topic already.
Exactly. Like there's so much out there. Yeah. If you're not doing original stuff, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. But I don't know. I can't read these kind of articles. I
can't either.
No, right? I mean, who would? And it's just what I like about writing them myself is kind of I get bored of writing and I just want to get it done. So I kind of keep it short, And if you read my blog posts, I try to keep them short. So like within, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, you actually have read the thing. And every single paragraph actually gives you some information. But then lately I open up a lot of articles and the first 4 or 5 paragraphs are just like blah blah blah, oh, this is why SEO is important because the internet, it was invented in 1989. And then,
like way too much history.
Yeah, exactly. And my grandma, who was born in that year, she whatever. And then you're like, just give me the gist.
Yeah, that's funny. You don't want to read a 30-minute section of history of keyword search and ranking and
exactly
why SEO is important.
Yeah, no, please. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, now that we've been talking about like education and creating content for that, like how's it going with Elixir Mentor? How are you feeling about it?
It's good. I mean, people have probably noticed I haven't done any content this week. I feel like I kind of have my like roller coasters where I just kind of get burned out or I put my head down. Like I've been building like a website hosting platform for HGA and it's amazing. Like I probably have like 5 websites hosted on it. And so I've been concentrating on that. And like sometimes when I'm like head down in a project, it's hard to focus on other things.
Yeah.
But
what was that you said? HGA?
Yeah, Hired Gun Apps is my dev shop. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apps. And you have a hosting platform for that. You build it.
Yeah, so I built a hosting platform using Phoenix. And so basically I just have, a DigitalOcean droplet. And then I have Nginx coming in, routing, doing, the certbot SSL certs, and then I use plug to route to whatever directory is being hosted.
Oh, okay. So those are your client projects that you host on your own server.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea because I have a problem that I have a bunch of small projects.
Yeah.
And every time I create a new project, I have to go to Fly, I have to run Fly launch, I have to give it a database. It's like I have to set up SSL. It's like, I wish I had what you have, just like drag and drop a folder somewhere. And it's there.
Yeah, like I was like so annoyed. I'm like, dude, I hate that most of my income is building websites.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I would save so much time if it was faster to deploy websites. And so, now I just have like skeleton projects and I just drag them in and create an organization. And then it's multi-tenant too. So everyone can have a blog, everyone can have podcasts, whatever they want. So it works pretty good. Yeah.
Nice. And that's all built with Elixir?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Also, your client projects, are they built with Elixir too?
Unless they like have very strong
Right.
reasons not to, I always try to push at least the back end tech to be Elixir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Makes
Yeah,
you more efficient as well. Yeah.
exactly. Well,
Oh.
like I honestly, I would struggle really hard if I had to like create a new like Node.js
Oh,
API
yeah.
project. It would be hard.
Yeah.
Uh,
You can't really build a client either, right? Because they're like, it's just, it's just the back end. Why does it take so long? Like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, aren't you afraid that if your droplet, just goes and then all your client projects are offline, don't you want to have
That
some redundancy,
that could be a problem.
right?
Well, like I've actually, so what's funny is I actually had to fix this, but right now for like localhost testing and my staging environment, I don't like create certs and SSL things for everything. So I
Okay.
had to change. I have a request header that I changed that goes in and routes to the proper organization,
Mhm.
and I'll forget that I have it on, and I'll
Oh,
like go to a real website that's supposed to be live, and I'll get like an internal error. And
yeah.
I panic for a short period of time. I was like, wait a second, shouldn't my Pulse script catch this? And like I'll
Yeah.
panic, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my whole server's down. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I have my override turned on.
Oh, so it's only for you, luckily then. It's
Yeah,
only
yeah,
for your
yeah.
browser.
Yeah, it's only for my
Okay.
browser, and I'll forget I have it on. And I keep telling myself I need to like go have like a flag activated that tells me it's
Mm,
on. So if
true.
I'm testing other domains, I know that my request
Yeah.
header's turned on.
Yeah, that's true. I for a while when I still used Google Chrome, I had two different profiles there. So I had like a localhost profile and a production profile. And the localhost or the production one was actually bright red, like it had a different theme. So
Hmm.
I always knew, well, after a while you actually kind of get used to it, so you don't see it as much anymore. But still, like you have a bright red theme, so actually now, okay, like now I'm connected to whatever, like production server or something,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that helps there as well.
That would be a good idea, actually. But
Yeah.
yeah, I need to. For the most part, I shouldn't be able to break it because
Mm,
I have a staging environment that I put everything into, and
mm.
then everything gets moved into production. So as long as I don't push directly to production,
Yeah.
I should be safe. But
Okay.
sometimes I push to production because I'm impatient. But
Yeah. 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 Well, you always it's a trade-off. Like you get fast in certain ways, but then you might be slowed down by a complete crash of your production server.
right, and then hopefully it's at like 2 a.m. and no one notices.
Well, and if somebody notices, you will then hopefully also get notified about it. And
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well, I have a lot of like pulse scripts and like automated cron tasks and stuff
Hmm.
that if things aren't working right, I get messages in Discord, so that's always
Oh,
helpful.
I never use Pulse script. What is that?
Well,
Pulse
I call
script.
them pulses. Like so like I'll have
Mm,
like a open endpoint that
okay.
I'll just hit with like a curl a bash script, and if it doesn't get a 200, then I have it send my Discord a message.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you have some internal checks connected to
Yeah.
that endpoint. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. That reminds me of something that Levels IO does, Peter Levels, because yeah, he also doesn't do testing or anything, and he has the same. He has like an internal kind of check, like some validations, and these validations they write an emoji to every website he has. So on all the like Nomad list and actually only Nomad.com, like all these websites, they have some where there's little emoji, like like a check emoji or an alert emoji, and then he uses Pingdom, I think, like one of these services that go to your website every couple of seconds or every minute to check
Hmm.
whether whether they're available. And you can also use like light scraping with those. So you can say, well, go to the website and check whether there's an emoji, like a thumbs up emoji or something. And if that script doesn't find that particular emoji, then he gets notified with a push notification. So he
Nice.
actually exposes on the website, he exposes like a status check, like a status, and then he uses Pingdom or something to look for that emoji. Yeah, also not bad.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea because like your back end could be up, right? And you could have a front end problem, and then
True.
the web scraping is kind of that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to start putting emojis on all my landing pages I create.
Yeah, just in the footer or something.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's funny.
Well, I don't know. I like Sentry for that, to be honest, and I'm happy to pay for that, but depends on the traffic that you have.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with buying tools when I need them, but I try to not prematurely pay for tooling.
Makes sense, yeah. I just get Sentry out of the box with Fly for a year. It's like
Oh,
$300
nice.
worth.
Yeah,
and then, I haven't reached that point yet where I actually have to start paying for it.
Yeah, that's good. I'll have to check it out. Maybe it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
But
otherwise, there's the error tracker thing yet, the library as well, the Elixir library.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. What is it called? I remember. I probably could find it.
Error tracker Elixir.
Yeah.
The Elixir error tracker. Yeah.
It helps to put Elixir in my searcher. You never find it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think they also recently added persistence, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is really cool. I have it starred and I meant to check it out and I forgot about it.
Yeah. So if you want to have, a solution that doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, and they do have persistence, I believe, with Postgres. Because that's the other thing, like what happens if you have an exception and then your server just dies? I mean, then you can't even see these kind of things anymore. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. All right, cool. I'm gonna keep that tab open. It'll live in my 50 tab browser.
500.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's funny. So with Run Elixir, let's see. We have a question from Believer. He says, "Does Run Elixir have examples showing object-oriented equivalents like Jose presented at one of the conferences?"
Oh, he means the patterns, the Gang of 4 patterns.
Oh yeah. That was such a good chat.
Yeah. Actually, the funny thing is, I also tried to map the Gang of 4 patterns to Elixir, like in a blog post a year or two ago, and then it felt so forced that I realized, no, actually, you shouldn't apply these patterns to Elixir. Yeah. And then Jose made his speech, his talk, and I realized, it doesn't work at all. But Jose made it so much more interesting here.
Yeah, the way he explained how it's already kind of there for Elixir, or like how to architect a current Erlang or Beam VM project. I thought it was really good because you can't really apply many design patterns to Elixir.
No, what I found most sorry, but the question was like, do we have any equivalent sections? I don't. I really focus on Elixir and just want to show what Elixir can do and how it does things. So maybe it would be good to have a section in the future which says, hey, if you come from OOP, these things might be different to you. Might be interesting because it's a different thinking. When people from OOP come, they think about classes and objects and everything, and then okay, how do I instantiate this struct now? And you're like, well, it's not an object. You're like, it's gonna go away as soon as you change something. So maybe that would be good to have that kind of section, but I didn't focus on that particularly.
I would say that was like my hardest concept to wrap my head around, was just like how do you create structs? Like, how do I do all this? And I was so confused for the longest time. And for a while, I thought the only way to do it was like having ecto schemas and things like that. And it took me a long time to wrap my head around how structs work. And yeah, it's true. That would actually I should make a video on that now that I'm thinking about it. Cause it was such a hard learning curve for me to understand how structs work.
And the funny thing is, it goes both ways, because now I'm writing JavaScript and I use quite a bit of objects there, like singleton classes. And for me, it was so unnatural to just say like, my object.field equals the value.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is how you persist something in the object. That's how you change in the object. And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't I have to take the return value and, pass it on? Like, no, it's actually changed. So yeah, I guess that's the hardest thing. But for me, so what I liked about this talk in particular is that he split these 3 properties that you have in OOP, which is like behavior, state, and then you have, I'm not sure what you call it. I think he called it an identity or like a version. So you have like, whenever you have an object, you instantiate an object, and then whenever you change something, the object actually stays the same. Like it keeps the same identity, right? It's mutable. So if it has an ID of 1, it will always be the object ID 1, and then it has different versions of that over time. And the other thing is behavior, which is like the object has a functions for its own state, or like it has behavior, like functions. And then it has state, which is fields, basically. And that's an OOP. And then he said, well, in Elixir, or in functional programming, these 3 things, they are split. So you have functions, which are pure functions. They live by themselves. You can pass them around. They're not connected to any state. You can, pass on anything. They're not connected to any classes either. I mean, modules, they seem a lot like classes, but they're just collections of functions, basically. So that's what I found interesting. Like with the behavior, that's different. And then you got the state, and that is also not part of an object anymore. It's part of a struct, but that struct or something, that changes every single time you change it. So it doesn't stay. It isn't the same object that you're passing around. And then you also don't have that versioning, so to say, that identity thing, because every time you change something, actually you create a new copy of it, because it's immutable stuff.
Sorry, I got distracted with my camera being slightly out of focus.
You know that they have a thing called autofocus, like
I used to use it, and it would always go out of focus when I started recording. So I could try it again, because it seems to work pretty well for you.
Yeah, I have an eye tracker thing, so it's actually like spot on.
Oh, nice. I probably do too. I don't know.
Yeah, but like going back to that, because that's what I found the most interesting thing, because in OOP, you have these things all together in one object. So like behavior, state, and the identity. And because you have this trifecta, that is the issue that you also have at the same time, because like you can change your own state using a function or behavior, and it stays the same object, but then some other function might also change your state. So you have no clear division between these things. And that's also why you need these patterns, just to kind of control the chaos of all the ways that you can actually change state. And then in functional programming, because you have all these kind of things separated, you don't face the same problems as you do in OOP. And that way you don't need these patterns either. And they really don't make sense. Like if you ever try to apply like a strategy pattern, you're like, it's just, why would I create like 5 functions? Well, actually I can like create 5 functions, then every function adds something to it. Well, great stuff. It's just 5 functions in a pipe.
Right. You're just transforming. And that's not like, that's actually how you should be writing your code anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. Just make it, composable inside. I mean, and you're just like, okay, this is like in Elixir, it just looks like normal code. It's not something special. But then in other languages, actually, it's a strategy pattern,
We got to just give it a name,
Yeah. So, that was a good talk.
That's funny. I think Elixir would be like a functional language in general, or a mutable language would be better for beginners to learn on, because it prevents you from writing just nasty, bloated functions that do way more than they should.
Yeah, true.
Because I feel like when I first started learning like test-driven development in JavaScript, that was the first time I realized how to start writing cleaner code. But then like in Elixir, I feel like you don't have to think that you're already writing clean code, because you're breaking things down into like transformations, right?
Yeah. Well, whatever your definition of clean code is, I mean, there are also books written about that people disagree with.
That's true. We could argue about it for sure.
Yeah. No, but what I like about functional programming is that you don't fall into the same problems, into the same pitfalls as you do with OOP. And when you start writing, for example, OOP, you might not be aware of these problems, but you actually run into them, and then they're huge headache. So like shared state, right? If you have an object, like a global object, and multiple processes can actually access it, yeah, like it's just you will just run into problems there. And then in functional programming, it's just like, yeah, everything you receive in your function, that's what you have, and no other function will change that state that you received as an argument. And if you want to change something globally, yeah, you really need to put an effort, to actually change that thing. Like you need to have a gen server that has a state, or an agent that has a state, and then you need to call that thing. But you understand, well, in a gen server, you understand that every call is like a message, or like a message, and they are sequentially processed. So you actually understand, okay, well, if I want to change this global thing, all these different calls, they're actually sequentially processed. So yes, you have kind of like the same things as an OOP, like this global state, for example, but it's so much harder to get it wrong, with a gen server.
You're way less likely to run into like your race condition bugs and things like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and if you do, it's so much easier to reason about, because you're like, okay, these are the messages I received. These were the states on every single step.
At least it's happening. It's happening in one place.
Exactly, and it's easy to observe.
Instead of some global object or service that you have that can be accessed from 20 different spots in your code base.
Exactly. And every single message you can, it's a callback. So in every callback, you can just have a logger or something, and then you see every single message you receive, what it does and how it changes the state. And I mean, with an object in OOP, like, you can just assign a value to that field. But unless you actually observe that field, you will never know in which order and from where that field was changed.
Yeah.
Right.
That, like, I know I just recently talked about this with another guest. I think it might have been Levi, but I inherited a code base. I was just doing iOS development at the time, and it was a music streaming platform, and we had this crazy this crazy bug that was so hard to track down and figure out what was happening. Like, we couldn't figure it out. The state was just randomly changing.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding out there was a singleton, and I put that in quotes because it wasn't actually there was like a weird bug in one of the Swift updates. So the singleton wasn't actually a singleton. So we had like 1,000 instances being created of this singleton.
Oh, wow.
And randomly different singletons were being accessed, and we couldn't figure out what was going on until I found out we had 1,000 occurrences of our singleton.
Jeez, yeah. But how would you find out, right?
Yeah, like tons of login. It was and we had a memory leak, obviously, because so like over time, if you ran it long enough, you would crash the app. But
yeah, true.
It was such a nightmare.
And that's what I meant with, like, in functional programming on Elixir, especially, like, it's so much harder to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
If you want to create a singleton, like, okay, you create a gen server and you give it the name of the module.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
That's how you register the gen server, and you can't register a second gen server with the same name. It's just not possible. So I think. No, I at least
you can't. In the
same supervisor, at least. Yeah.
Well, like you can't have two gen servers with the same name, because like if you made dynamic ones, you'd have to pass in some identifier with it, right?
Right. Yeah. But so there you go. Like, if you want to have a true singleton, then you just have the name as you register with the name, and that's it.
In fact, all the bugs and headaches I've ever had in the past coming from object oriented, I don't think I've ever had in Elixir.
Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. It is good. Yeah. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, it's, I kind of took a step back from the whole, well, Elixir is the best language in the world. And I mean, I personally think it is the greatest language I've ever worked with. But also, frankly, I haven't worked with that many languages. But whenever I go to another language, I'm like, oh man, I miss this thing from Elixir, And but the thing is, like, I try to kind of like also look at other languages and see what they are doing better. And it might not be the language design, but it might also be the community or the libraries they have, or the support they have of, like, big companies or platforms or whatever. So if you want to use, I don't know, Lambda functions, like, JavaScript all the way. Like, you can have a Node.js backend, and that perfectly integrates with your Lambda function.
Yeah.
So if you want to work with that, like, Node.js will be the best option, right? So I'm like, it depends on
You
what
just
you want
got
to work with.
the right tools for the job, right? You can't
Yeah.
like I love Elixir. I want to continue almost only using it, right? But I'm also not going to say it's for every single project.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just kind of thinking like, what can we learn as a community, as a language from other languages and other communities as well. And like, if you would ask me 2 years ago, like I would have said, no, Elixir is the best language in the world, you know. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
still, like I'm not very far away from that thinking, but now I kind of look at it. I try to look at it from a humble way and say, well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there are other languages which are really, really great too, you know.
I mean,
If you look at
I used to feel that way about Swift, right? When I was just an iOS dev, I thought that
right,
was the best thing in the world. And I
yeah.
actually thought Xcode was the best IDE to write code in.
Oh wow, yeah. Look how that
Yeah.
changed, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Xcode is the most below, but it does still have really nice tools
Mm,
for like the iOS development, right? Like they have great like logging tools and testing things. Like there's a lot of things that I miss, but not enough that I want to go be a full-time iOS dev.
yeah, yeah. I understand that. How do you feel about Live You Native, by the way?
I mean, it looks amazing. I had Brian on a
Hmm.
couple months ago. It looks awesome. Like I need to go and play with it and mess around
Right.
and really get my hands dirty. But
Mm.
it's a pretty exciting project in my opinion.
Do you think that might be something you could use for client projects too?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Because we
Okay.
always try to push. We'll always push, you know, some native, you know, some multi code based tool if people are
Right.
making mobile apps that don't need the latest and greatest features on an iPhone or an
Right.
Android phone,
Yeah.
you know?
If
Yeah.
it's literally just an app where you can like press a button and you book something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so yeah, if I had a client right now where they wanted a mobile app, I'd probably be
Hmm.
neck deep in Live View Native for sure.
It's good to know. Yeah. And also
Yeah.
what I understand is you can also extend it to your website. Like you have a website and then you also have a Live You Native version of your website. And you can even share the styles and everything, right? And the same
I believe
fallbacks
so.
even.
Yeah.
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 So that's
Whenever
pretty
you can,
cool too.
I'm a big believer. If you can share code base amongst projects, as long as
Hmm.
it works well, definitely do it.
Yeah, true.
Because you don't want to maintain, like, I remember, like, when I was writing, you know, Node.js and Express backends, you'd have a different code base for every front end. And then
Hmm.
you need a developer that knows how to write Angular, iOS, Android, and you have all these apps.
Yeah.
And like, I remember the very first startup I was a part of, we had, you know, like an Apple TV app, we had an iPhone app, we had a Mac app, a Windows app. Like
Oh wow. All
it's
different code
hard,
bases.
all different code bases. It's so hard to maintain that.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, okay, Apple, Mac OS. I mean, still you have the same language, so you could have like a
Yeah,
kernel.
so those
Yeah.
are the same language, but there's still enough differences that you kind of end up having different
Right.
code bases for each interface,
Yeah.
you know? Like you can share your services and like a lot of the heavy lifting,
Hmm.
but the UI is all different.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Maybe that's different now. Like it's been a few years since I've written a Mac
Well, I mean, from
OS.
Live You Native, Live You Native seems to be working on what is it, iOS, iPad, even the glass. So WatchOS? No, it's not WatchOS. What is that?
The AR.
Yeah, the
what is-
AR thing.
what
like
is
the,
it called? Yeah, I don't remember what it's
Something
called.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it looks really awesome. It looks,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I do my live streaming too, right? I mean, not this week because I've been sick. But I'm also thinking about the next project that I want to work on, and I have two projects, and maybe you can tell me what I should be working on. Because my first project is I wanna check Live You Native as well. Maybe build a little app with that, like a habit tracker. Actually, I wanted to have a habit tracker for my phone, where I can just say, you know, today I ran, today I went to the gym, today I ate junk food, and then I want to have a nice calendar view where you see little colored dots in the calendar view, where you see in the dots where you've done stuff.
Mm.
And I don't know, I couldn't find that UI anywhere. And also, I don't want to have like a subscription thing, just like plain easy habit tracker thing.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
would be project A for the live stream. Just like set up a live native app, try to get it on the iPhone, maybe eventually publish it on the App Store. And the second thing is, and I've been getting quite excited about that lately, because I always wanted to get into nerves more, into embedded coding with Elixir. And the other day I saw this video about the sail drone, and it's an autonomous sailing drone, basically.
Okay.
And it's just like a little ship, and it can sail through the oceans. It does like ground research, so like you can scan the ocean bottom and everything. They recently sent it into Hurricane Milton, so you actually had like live data or live view inside the hurricane on the water.
Dang.
Yeah, and that was such an amazing video, because it's like you're literally there, you see the video, and it's kind of like, man, there's these huge waves, and there's like 160 miles per hour winds, it's like, and then you have this little drone inside that hurricane.
That's
And
wild.
it is. So then I thought, how could I build a little drone, like a sailing, well, let's call it drone, but like a sailing boat that you can
Yeah.
remotely control with Elixir? Would that be possible?
That would be cool.
That would be a cool project, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it would also give me the reason to buy a 3D printer to print the boat. So,
That's a
two
good
reasons.
point. Like, oh no, you got to buy more gear.
I do. I mean, I have a
Dude,
project.
I've always been I've always wanted an excuse to buy a 3D printer.
There you go. Yeah. So maybe
But
you should find a project.
That,
Like
well, embedded hardware stuff would be really cool, because that, like 10 years ago, that was like I did like manufacturing automation, so it would be
Right.
it'd be a lot of fun to get
Yeah,
my
right.
hands on some hardware again.
Yeah.
Well, it would be fun to build like when I was a kid, I remember with my dad, we built a remote control airplane.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like
Yeah.
with batteries and like electric
Yeah.
stuff now, it'd be pretty cool to build like
Yeah.
a battery version of a remote control airplane.
Yeah, that would be cool. And actually, like just this morning, I was looking up how to, what kind of batteries would you need for such a boat? I mean, similar with the airplane, you would need to see,
Yeah.
well, how much energy do I need, and how big do my batteries need to be, and then can I
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
have like a little solar panel that also charges my battery while the airplane flies, for example, like and I have no understanding of embedded stuff at all. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I work with a little small project. I had like a little flag that I could turn with a little motor, cool, like fun stuff, but nothing
Yeah.
serious. But I always want to get into it because I love the haptics of it, that you just have something to touch, like you build something and then with software you bring it to life, kind of,
It would be. It'd be
Right.
cool. It'd be cool,
Yeah.
man. I think you have to.
Yeah. I think I have to get the 3D printer. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I
you
think
definitely
I need
have to do
start.
that.
Yeah. Well, let's see. My girlfriend is excited too. I just have to convince her that I need a couple of €100 for a 3D printer.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't even looked into 3D printing for a couple of years. Is pricing down on them? Are they more affordable these days?
Yeah, you can get something for like $200 if you want.
Oh, that's
But
not
then,
bad.
yeah, but then it's really entry level.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've been looking at like something that is a bit more premium, and they start at like $500-600.
Okay. I mean,
And-
even
and
that's not bad.
No, I mean they used to be like 2,500,
Yeah.
3,000 for the basic entry models too. So yeah, I mean €500-600, and then you have a pretty good premium, or not premium, but like middle market 3D printer. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
been looking at the Bamboo P1D or P1S, one of them, and they have like two versions, and I'm not sure which one I should get, but I want to have one that has a big bed, like a bed size, where you can actually build bigger things with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Well, you got to be able to build a sailboat, so
right, like it needs to be big. Yeah.
is it like with these, do you already have to be kind of like a knowledgeable in 3D drawings and things?
I
Or
have no clue, but I don't think it will be that hard, right? I mean, you can just design it, like
that's true.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be that hard. Yeah, but
Oh
the,
yeah,
the fun.
The GOAT
Yeah.
of entry-level 3D printers, Bamboo Lab A1, $200.
Yeah, that one. And then I was looking at the P1D, and it's like $600 or 600 euros. And then you have a
P1S,
P1S.
$600. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right.
So I thought, okay, like it's not nothing, but like it will also last, and hopefully I will use it for more than 2 or 3 things.
Oh, dude, I feel like I would go down such rabbit holes if I had a 3D printer.
Yeah.
It would be fun
Yeah.
though. It would
Yeah,
be
I
fun.
have all these things where I'm thinking like I would just like to have a custom rack for my audio interface here for like my amplifier. I
Yeah,
would like to have
yeah.
something that is little raised, and then it should have a little holder for these things. So I might actually do that. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's see.
I feel like
Yeah,
you have to, yeah.
yeah. Everything's aligning because the fun thing is when I was a kid and I went to elementary school, we had these they called them free homeworks, so you could do whatever you wanted, but it just needed to be somewhat creative or interesting, but you could just freely choose whatever you wanted to do. And my dad, he had a pretty cool, like a garage where we could do some woodworking and everything. So I was always building little model ships out of wood, basically, when I was like
Nice.
6, 7, 8 years old. And they were actually like they were always like rectangular and everything, but they had little sails and a little rudder and like what do you call them? Like the railing on the side so that you don't fall over. Is
Oh
that called a
yeah.
railing?
We'll call it a railing. I think
Railing, yeah.
there's a boat term for it, but I can't remember off the
So
top of
might
my
be
head.
that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I always built these things back in the day, and I miss that. So maybe if I get a 3D printer, I can relive those childhood
Yeah.
dreams. Yeah,
Yeah, bring your childhood back, you know?
right?
Dude, imagine being kids with a 3D printer, like
Mm,
that would have been awesome.
right.
Because
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, I would always like shape things out of like foam blocks and stuff and
Oh, nice.
like make like aerodynamic things. And I remember I had a really cool like technology class in middle school
Mhm.
and we had like a wind tunnel. And so you could
Oh,
do air drag and stuff on like
wow.
little objects and so yeah, I would be like shaving it and trying to make it like something more aerodynamic. I don't like maybe it was like a Pinewood Derby car or something like that, and it was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah,
Ah, that's cool. And then did you also have these visualizations then with like the green,
yeah,
red, and
yep,
the
yeah. Like
colors?
yeah, we would have our computer with the analysis, and you could see where the
Yeah,
air friction or resistance was, and it was really
exactly.
cool. Yeah,
Ah, that's awesome. That's a really premium thing to have. Yeah.
I know.
I
Yeah,
remember the funniest thing I saw for that is I think somebody compared one of the like fancy cars. I'm not sure whether it was a Tesla or Cybertruck or something. It was like a car like that was kind of overhyped but not
yeah,
that
yeah.
great. And they put that in the wind tunnel, and then they compared that to a cow. And they said that the cow is more wind aerodynamic. That's what you call it. The
Yeah,
cow
yeah.
was more aerodynamic than this car.
That's hilarious. I used to always drive like Jeep Wranglers. I don't know if you know what
Mm.
those are, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and yeah, horrible. You're just a
It's a
giant
wall.
flat surface pushing forward like
Exactly.
oh man.
Like maybe you should have a cow instead.
Yeah, I start riding. I get a lot better gas mileage riding my cow.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
think
okay.
like if you could figure out a good way to film, like where you're doing 3D printing and embedded hardware, like if you're building the component in live streams and coding, I think that would be
Right.
so cool.
Right. I would need to have like a top-down camera here so that I
Yeah,
can, show the things, and yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
that would
And so
be.
I have like, one like I'm thinking if I would do that project, like I have a long-term goal, and I think that is something I would love to achieve. Which is like I'm living in the Netherlands, and I have a friend who lives in Connecticut, and I would love to send that boat through the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Connecticut, and then my friend would receive it.
That would be wild.
Can you imagine, like with Elixir?
That would be so cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure how hard it would be or how easy, but I mean, if you get the fundamentals right and the thing is watertight,
Yeah.
waterproof, like it shouldn't be too hard, right?
Well, yeah, that would be wild.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Well, let me think about it some more, but that would be a cool project, no?
You got to talk to Brian from Dockyard because he's a big sailor.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Brian too. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask him about his opinion on transatlantic drone sailings.
I mean, obviously, just go for it.
Yeah, don't ask for permission, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's not too expensive if it sinks. But
No, I think actually these things are pretty cheap. I mean, okay, the printing thing, you need to buy the printer, but then you can print as many boats as you want.
yeah,
Um,
and I
so
feel
I
like
was also
the servos and things like that's
no, they're
just
damn
relatively
cheap.
cheap. Yeah,
They're like $10, But I mean, you
yeah,
want to have good quality and stuff. But
right.
I was thinking the most difficult thing will be the communication. Like I think I need to have satellite communication because there's
Yeah.
no reception. And I don't know, maybe there's some cheaper ones, but I saw one for $300 from
Oh,
Iridium. It's like a satellite company, and then you can buy for $300 like a little box,
yeah, yeah.
and put it on the boat, and then you have like a $15 a month subscription for them.
Okay.
But I don't know, something I need to find something that is something like that, and that might be the most expensive part. But I think you can get like below $1,000,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That would be
I mean,
cool.
if it sinks, sure, it's $1,000 gone, but still, like the whole process,
Yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
be really interesting, no? Well,
I,
maybe the viewers should decide. Let me know. What do you prefer? Do you want to see a Live View native app, or do you want to see a transatlantic drone ship?
well, I think you just obviously have to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I have too many projects already, so I gotta prioritize.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think like one thing I want to work on, which might not be as interesting to my channel, but I have realized I suck so much at front end development with like Tailwind and CSS stuff.
Right.
I might start like live streaming me being a better front end dev.
It
Like
might be, yeah,
learning
but
a
it might
little
be
bit.
interesting too.
It might be. Because
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. My brain does not work
Oh,
for Tailwind. And like I get like when I have it, when I build it, it makes
mhm.
sense to me. But like to get it to a pretty state, I feel like I spend 10 times more time than most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean, I kind of get used to it. After a while, you just have your helper classes, you just know by heart.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also, I think the syntax is pretty insightful. Like, it's pretty, I say, you can just guess what you need. Like, if you want to have background, what is BG? And then which
Yeah,
color do
that's
you want?
true.
Okay. And then which shade do you want? So, like, it's pretty logical,
Just a
I
handful of
think.
like fundamentals that you have to remember, right?
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah, I
To be
don't
honest,
know.
I think if you look at Tailwind UI, I'm not sure whether you're using Tailwind UI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at those, if you just go through that, you actually learn a lot. All these nitty-gritty details. Like
Hmm.
sometimes you need to have an aspect ratio, or you need to have like a clicky thingy, like whatever. Like they have all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
little extra use cases there. Like I think
yeah.
that's interesting.
But like, and then you bring up like embedded hardware and stuff. I'm like, that's way more my jam.
Yeah, that's where you come from too, right?
Yeah, no front end.
No.
Absolutely.
No, no.
Like,
What you could do if you really want to go hardcore, you could get the Raspberry Pi Pico, and that is a microcontroller,
okay.
and you can't even use nerves on it. It's not supported yet, but it supports Atom VM. And Atom VM is a library that tries to bring Elixir, the beam, basically, to these microcontrollers that really only have, like what is it, 2 MB of RAM or something, like very
Oh
small.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but you can use, like, I know that Atom VM, they support the Pico, and
Okay.
that is a very proper microcontroller. So, like, I don't know, you live close to the mountains, so why don't you just set up a little box that takes pictures of the snow or whatever, and then it streams it to your server, and you have like a live view or something of that.
That
Why
could
not?
be really cool. I like that. Dang
Right?
it. Now you're going to have me going down like I'm going to need a 3D printer and
Yeah. No, you just need a box. You don't need a 3D printer.
but if I want to make the box look like a wild animal, like
Yeah, well, you can paint it. Go to the elementary school and ask them to, paint it
there
like
we go. Paint
green.
my camera box.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, but
That
that's
would
the
be
other thing
cool.
that I saw with the Hurricane Milton, because people they hung these boxes at trees at very
Hmm.
high altitude, and they just strapped them around the tree, and then these boxes, they were also live streaming the video to I think on satellite. I'm not sure how they stream these kind of things, But that way you can get amazing footage, from these.
For real.
It's amazing. It's catastrophic, but it's still so impressive to see this stuff in action. So I was really thinking I would love to get into that stuff where I can just build these kind of like half autonomous boxes that film or whatever, record something, and that gives you insight into the stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
So
start a little like snow conditions project.
Yeah, because you ski, right?
Yeah,
you're a skier and you're a mountain biker, so you need the current conditions of your favorite trail.
That's true.
Right?
That would be fun, actually. I like that.
Yeah, it would be good live streaming material too.
For sure.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
So you do your trail cam. I do my transatlantic drone boat.
Dude, I might have to fly to the East Coast for the arrival.
Man, that would be a happening, right?
Yeah. That would be awesome, actually. I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, I might even fly over then. That would be cool.
You almost have to.
Yeah, right.
You know what you should do is time it for an Elixir conference.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, isn't there? No, I mean they're all in Orlando, right?
Yeah, if they keep doing them in Orlando, you could like fly it into NASA or like Miami, somewhere over there, and then everyone could just drive like an hour and a half for the Elixir sailboat. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be cool. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Let's see. Yeah. I think I have to give this some more thoughts. Yeah, especially how can I, because the thing is I have very little time outside of my whole, like all these content things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if I build these kind of things, if I don't create content, my brain is just dead for programming stuff and everything. So if I build that kind of thing, I kind of need to make it part of this whole thing that I'm doing. Yeah. So live streaming, for example, right? And then it would actually be too.
You should start like a GoFundMe for the project, and I bet people would contribute.
That might be good. Yeah. I will think about. I mean, it depends on the material cost, right? Below like $1,000, I can spare that. Over the next like months or so, because I would probably only send it next summer when But I don't know, like when the weather conditions are good, when the sun is shining for the solar panels, that kind of stuff.
So, well, it just better be programmed to handle hurricane winds, Yeah. It better be an amazing sailor,
Oh, man. But even that would be a good story. Like we got all the way, and then hurricane, whatever, XY hit Florida
took it out.
again. It took it out.
Yeah, that would be cool. Fun. I love that.
Yeah, the Elixir boat. Yeah. Let's see. Well, again, the viewers should decide. Let me know what you want to see. Which kind of projects.
So everyone, let Peter know.
Yeah.
I think just tell him that he has to do both. Really be demanding.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, the Live Your Native thing, I found that super exciting as well, because iOS is also. I love the thing that you can build apps that you can actually touch. Kind of like, I mean, you press buttons, but it's on your phone, in your pocket. It's software you've written. Yeah, that's what I love about iOS as well.
Yeah, building an app is different than building like a web application. There's something cool about being able to carry it around. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, and that's why like the embedded hardware stuff is cool, like Raspberry Pi projects and well, and also like Dockyard is just doing so many cool things, like the Beacon CMS that.
True.
They just that looks really awesome too. Like so much of this stuff is so good for the ecosystem.
Yeah. I haven't checked out Beacon CMS yet, but
I hope cool.
it will help everybody to just create a blog.
Right?
Because, I really try pushing people on writing blogs, because if you just write it on Twitter or Medium or somewhere like that, or your personal newsletter, it's not searchable. Like people won't find it. And
That's
even
true.
with small blog posts, you might actually help somebody get unstuck. Very quickly. And I love these kind of blog posts which are just like 2 paragraphs, and they're like, I had this problem and I didn't know that I can use this configuration to solve it. So here it is. And you wouldn't believe, like every week or 2, I run into an issue like that, and then I find a blog post that exactly explains that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, thank God that you wrote this blog post.
Well, and that's exactly what you want when you have that particular problem. Like you don't, like we were saying before, you don't want to read 30 minutes of fluff just to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, it's just 2 paragraphs and that's it,
Yeah.
So
no, I
always run into that with the with what is it called? the testing Floki, right? The testing library where you can take HTML and then assert against that HTML or pass the HTML.
Yeah.
And the problem with Floki is that it encodes the HTML. So if you have like a test name, for example, that is like that has an what's it called, an apostrophe, like apostrophe. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So like apostrophe whatever.
Oh, like where you have to use escape characters and things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it escapes the characters when it passes the HTML, and you can disable that in that configuration.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yes, and I how often did I run into that issue that I used Faker for creating a fake name?
Yeah.
And then obviously sometimes, but only sometimes, it would add an apostrophe, and then my test would fail because I didn't assert, like I just said, if the HTML contains the name, kind of.
I didn't realize you could disable that, because I think what I would do is I would manipulate my tests, which you shouldn't do, because then it's not a fully covered test.
Well, what I did, and it got really annoying, is that so for everything else in the HTML, you can just do the regex match, right? Like the equal sign with a tilde, and for like any text, for example. But then when it came to these particular names, you needed to have a special helper, like a helper function that would actually escape also the name, and then only compare it to the HTML. Otherwise, it wouldn't match. Right, and that was so annoying that only for these particular fields I needed to have a special test function. And then I realized in Floki you can actually disable the encoding, and then you don't need that. You can use the equal sign tilde for everything, even for the names.
Yeah.
So there is a blog post out there. I forgot who wrote it, but it's literally 2 paragraphs, just this one line in the configuration that you can disable it. And also the configuration, at least at that point, wasn't documented in the Floki library. I tried to look for it. It's literally somewhere in the code hidden. And that person, they actually looked into that code and realized, oh, I can actually disable this thing. So super. That was probably the most useful blog post I've ever read. Yeah.
So see, guys, blog posts, they don't even have to be a chore. Just do micro blog posts about like one thing. That I like that idea, actually. That's good. I have to be better. I hate writing blog posts. Yeah. I don't know.
Some people, I don't know. I mean, I hated writing, and then I wrote a book, and I still hate writing afterwards. But I kind of forced myself to just write more. And after a while, it just you get used to it. Once you find like your style, it's just okay. You just put down the words, and then what I use, like Curlic, you just fix all the bugs, fix all the spelling mistakes, and that's it. I barely read my blog posts after I've read them, after I've written them. So just like push them.
Yeah, I'll have to check out Curlic, because I use like Grammarly a lot, but I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, I used Grammarly before as well, but this thing you can just use everywhere, right? You just like select some text and you create this. You hit the shortcut, and then it gives you some suggestions.
That's nice. I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about Grammarly is, and I know this is probably like a feature that people like, but the damn extensions for everything. But then like if you add it to like iMessage, it like pops up on your computer like in the way of like, and you'll always be dragging it around trying to get it out of the way.
Oh, right. Yes. In the type box, right? Yeah, man. I hate that thing. Well, I mean, I used Grammarly before as well. They also have a Visual Studio Code extension. It's not official, but there's an extension for it.
Okay.
Eventually all I needed was a spell checker, a proper spell checker. And now I use Curlic with Claude. I used to do ChatGPT, but Claude is just better and faster. So
Claude does it seems better for whatever it generates. Like I'll use it a lot for just like, I mean, I always have to change it because I don't like it completely, but I'll always use it to get me started with like, when I have my short video clips from like this podcast, I'll always use it to get me started. Like, okay, write me a post. Here's the transcript. Here's the transcript of the video, and then it goes. Yeah. And then I have to go.
Use ChatGPT for that?
Well, I'll use Claude for that, but then I'll go and change words because I don't say insightful and other things like that. Like I don't want to say, Peter and I just had the most insightful conversation.
That would be LinkedIn post. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be LinkedIn content,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, another Elixir-based tool for that is called Cast Magic. It's
yep.
It's developed by Justin, who's a fellow Elixir developer.
Okay, nice. I
And
feel like Wout it works for them as well. I could just
could
be
be,
making. He's the
yeah, I
guy,
don't know.
the Svelte Live
Oh, okay. Yeah,
author.
they use Svelte, so I think
Okay.
there's some connection.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just know Justin, and they're really good at doing that. Like you can just upload like this live stream, for example, you can upload. They transcribe it for you, and then you have some preset prompts that you can run against it, and
Oh,
it gives you,
nice.
like tweet ideas. It gives you the highlights of the conversation. It gives you like LinkedIn content. It gives you blog post ideas. So you can really repurpose, like for example, this conversation super quickly into like all these different content forms.
Nice. I'll have to
So
check that out. Yeah.
yeah.
I use Opus Pro
Yeah,
for
they're similar.
creating my shorts, but they pretty much end at creating shorts and posting to socials, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to
And
check out Cast
and what I didn't
Magic.
like, I tried all of them because I wanted to use them for my live stream, but then I have like 3.5 hours of content. Like every live stream was like 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
So like the thing thing that I didn't like with Opus is that they render the shorts immediately. Like they give you suggestions, but then they take really long time to actually render the videos. And I'm like, I don't need the videos. I just need a transcript and then maybe some like quotes from the transcript.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Cast Magic does. And also, to be honest, because Cast Magic doesn't yet have like exporting of videos. Like they do have that to a certain extent, but it's not perfect yet.
Okay.
So I use Descript now. Like it's just an editor tool.
Okay.
And there you can do the same thing. Like they transcribe this content, and then you can just ask the AI, like, "Hey, give me the like 10 highlights of the conversation."
Oh, and then you just go grab the timestamps,
You have to
basically.
like cut it a
Okay.
little bit, but it doesn't take too long.
Yeah, okay. I used to manually, when I first started my YouTube channel, I would manually
Yeah.
create my shorts, and it took me so long to go through
Yeah.
like an hour video for, your 60 minute or 60 seconds or
True.
less clips.
Yeah, and you need to watch everything again, and so that's what AI is for, I would say. Just transcribe it and summarize it and export the highlights there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what are your plans with like where do you want to take Run Elixir?
I don't know. Like Run Elixir, it seems to be kind of rounded off now. I think at least for the quick start guide. I get
Yeah.
a little bit of feedback here and there, so I try to integrate that. But the other thing is I'm continuing with new topics whenever I counter them. Like for example, I've been working with Rustler and some NIS, and I think, well, it would be good to have like a little section where you explain how to use Rustler, how to use Ziegler, and whatever else it is. So just to interact with other languages. So like Run Elixir, I feel as it is right now, it's kind of like feature complete, at least for the quick start guide. But
Okay.
I'm gonna add over time. I'm gonna add more of the advanced topics to it. But yeah, again, I have like 15,000 different projects going on. So
Well, and
like whenever
you're gonna be building a sailboat soon, so
exactly. So now I have to build a whole boat. uh, let's see. But I try to add it because these blog posts I can write them pretty quickly, and all of these little sections for Run Elixir.
I like
Yeah,
that. Like it's kind of turning in like if you like just short little technical topics, right? It'll kind of
yeah,
be like a micro blog post, but more of a guide
exactly.
form
Yeah.
or
So
a
if you want to look
better,
up,
more cataloged.
yeah, like a catalog of little. Well, it's not like a cheat sheet because it's longer than a cheat sheet. Like a cheat sheet would just be like one function, right? But this is more like a little like lookup thing where you just look up how to interact with Rust, for example, using Rustler, or how do you use the persistent term? What are the functions you can use and these
Yeah, I
kind
love
of things.
that.
So
Now,
yeah,
do you want contributors or how does that work?
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Of course,
okay,
it's open source on GitHub. So if you have any contributions, just open a PR. There already have
cool,
been a few smaller fixes.
awesome,
So
that's great.
yeah, but people don't really like to write a lot of content and contribute it. So still,
I
if
feel
you,
like, well, that's the difficulty, right?
yeah,
No one
but
wants to except the author.
yeah, but that's a fallacy of open source where you're like, okay, I'm gonna put it on GitHub, and then people
And
will just add things to it. But that almost never happens like that. It's usually like one or two people who work on it, and then everybody
exact,
else that chip and bug reports or maybe like small fixes,
yeah,
but nobody
exactly.
really takes ownership of it.
I think it's a fantastic resource, especially if you're new. Go check it out because you're going to be. I think it's a good reference. It's so easy. I almost think it's better than like the quick start guides on the official documentation, like because it's just like more to it's exactly what you need to get started instead of all the basics, you know.
Well, what I see is like the Run Elixir and then the Quick Start Guide and then the official docs. They all are at different levels of complexity and detail as well. So you got like Run Elixir below the Quick Start Guide, and that's how I wanted to do it. Just like a really low, like I really brush over a lot of details there on purpose and just give you, you know, like the gist. That's it.
Yeah,
and then if you want to learn more about it, well, there's the Elixir Quick Start Guide. But even there, you know, the Quick Start Guide already, like when you look up any topic, it's, you know, like super long to read, but it's interesting. It has a lot of details, but it might be overwhelming when you just started with the language. But it might be interesting when you have been working with it for like half a year or so, you know? Or if you want to look up like specific things, like why is something exactly like it is, well, then you should go to the Quick Start Guide. And then, of course, on top of that is the Elixir docs, which are obviously as extensive as the language, or almost. And it's good that there are different levels, I think, of documentation. So
I wish Run Elixir was a thing when I first came. Like, I feel like if you're a software developer and you just need a really quick way, like hit the ground running, that's what it is.
And that's what I wanted to do, because I'm a person, I learn by doing. Like for example, I started writing Rust and I'm like, okay, how do I create a function? How do I create a application? How do I expose this, whatever? Like, how do I create a variable? How do I assign it, and these kind of things? And like I come to a new language and I want to kind of transfer my knowledge that I have from other languages into that language, just to see how do I do X in this language, right? How do I define a function? How do I create how do I assign a variable? How do I execute a function? You know, how do I log, for example, in that language? So all these kind of basic things that you already know from other languages, but you just need to look them up in for the new language. That's what I wanted to do with the Run Elixir.
It looks awesome. I've only done like a very quick scan of it, but from what I like, it looks good to me.
Yeah, well, let me know whether it's useful or not. You know, if you have any suggestions for topics, it's also much appreciated. Like, I have a bunch of drafts, but you know, I kind of just work on things that I currently encounter, and then I'm like, okay, I have some information about this, so I'm gonna quickly write it down in that.
I think it would be hard to like scrape my memory banks, but it would be really cool to have a coming from like you could have different coming from sections. So, hey, are you coming from like the Node.js world or JavaScript? And then you could kind of have like an altered of what you already have, but more aimed at a JavaScript dev. And then you could have, a Ruby dev section, and it could be cool.
That'd be cool. The only problem there is I don't have that experience, so I
you gotta
tell you.
you would need contributors for that, right? Like people that actually experience the transition.
True. I mean, there's the book From Ruby to Elixir. So that would be something, but then I would need to read that thing. But I mean, if there are people out there who had that experience, that they came from a different language and they struggled with a couple of things in Elixir, let me know, and then maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah, that's Steve. I think it's Boosie. I don't know. Yeah.
Steve.
He's going to be on my podcast the beginning of November, I think. So that'll be fun. I don't have any Ruby experience, so it'll be like, I'll just be full of dumb questions, and it'll be a good chat. Yeah. I don't know. Do you know any Ruby? Do you?
I used Ruby for like half a year because we had old Ruby services we needed to replace with Elixir, and we replaced them with new Ruby services. So I worked with that for like half a year, and afterwards I was like, I kind of don't want to work with it. Like, I understand why people love it, but for me, also coming from Elixir with like 2.5 years of experience by then, I was like, no. I see why Elixir is as it is, and what is better about Elixir, and what is also better about Ruby and Ruby and Rails, but I just don't. It didn't fit with me. Like all the magic functions, all the magic attributes you just get from anywhere, you don't know where from. So if you know all these kind of things, and if you use it in the happy path, so to say, then you're great. You're super productive, right? But as soon as something goes wrong, yeah, well, you have a problem there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I didn't like about Ruby, because yeah, it's just when you have a controller function, right? And then out of a sudden you just want to have, I don't know, a certain header or something, you just do like add and then the variable name, and it just comes out of magic anyway. Like
Okay.
I don't, it's just there. You just need to know it's there.
It's just globally available.
Exactly. It's just like you have it. So you just do add something and then you have it. And I didn't like that thing. And what I like about Elixir is like every single function, you know exactly what you're getting, because everything you have as an argument is what you actually have. Right. And you can always like IO inspect on the variable, and then you see exactly which fields you have available. And that's about it, right? No magic, nothing. Everything is clean, top to bottom. Like you can reason about it easily.
Yeah, I struggled. I didn't really understand like supervisors and like the whole ecosystem, or like I should say like project architecture when I first started writing code. And so lots of it stayed magical to me. But as you start doing more difficult things, like I feel like when you write your first gen server and you have to start using supervisors, then everything kind of starts clicking and you understand, and then you can see like your supervision tree and all your processes. And
yeah, but I think, I mean, although it's called Erlang OTP, like I think there's so much more than OTP to Erlang and Elixir than just gen servers and supervisors. I mean, that's again,
yeah, for sure. Those are just that's the shiny object that brings everyone to it.
Yeah. But then nobody uses it in practice, honestly.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you do, but I mean, for me, also it took really long until I wrote my first gen server, and then it was more like what I liked about it is that you can just move state into it, and it's there. So I think we had like an XML API that we need to interact with, and we get the session token, and the session token was only valid for like 10 minutes or something. So I needed to kind of keep the session token in memory, and then every 9 minutes I needed to renew it so that every API request we are making is actually validated, or is valid. So that thing is super simple to write with a gen server, right? You just like create the gen server, it fetches a session, and by itself every 9 minutes it refreshes the session token. So that is something super simple to build with Elixir.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think like maybe that's the easiest way into gen servers and so on, when you just think, okay, how can I have this long running process that stores some state, right?
Yep. Well, and like I do similar things with like my Discord events that I publish on Elixir Mentor. I just keep that in state, right, in a gen server, and then I just hit the Discord server like every hour, 45 minutes. Like there's really no need to, like I'm not updating my events that often,
Exactly.
And so then if you have a high traffic day, at least you're not just beating up Discord's API.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that, like cron jobs as you described them. Super easy. And what I like about this part is that they run as part of your application. So you can obviously run cron jobs just with shell scripts, like you can use cron in your terminal. But then it's like a one-off script you're running, and there's no state shared between the two runs unless you write them to file or something like that.
Right.
But you can super easily create inside your application a cron job, and run it every couple of minutes, for example, and the state is available to your whole application and you can use it. So that's what I like about that's what I like about it too.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been writing a lot of tasks lately, and I never really did that until recently. And so I created like, website templates, and then I'm taking like map data, structured data, and dynamically adding it to my template and generating new websites. And so that was fun part of my little like web hosting project too.
Yeah, that's cool too. Yeah. They're I don't know. It's just you need to run into these problems, and then you need to kind of like vaguely understand how you can solve them with gen servers. And then you just need to connect these two, and then you're fine. Yeah.
There you go. I feel like my biggest mind blowing experience was learning how to create dynamic gen servers.
Right. Yeah. That's the whole. And then you have partition supervisors too.
Yep.
That's a whole new thing. But again, like I don't think anybody really needs that kind of stuff unless you have the use case for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't really know you need it till you start digging for it when you like have something to solve, you know?
Until you have the problem, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, so yeah, I want to spin up these web scrapers dynamically. You know, I want to scrape like 10 websites at a time, but it might drop down to like 5 websites at a time. And well, yeah, then you're talking about a dynamic supervisor. You know, just use that thing, spin up your web scrapers, and you're good. Like,
yeah, there you go.
so yeah, once you have the problem for it, then there's a solution that you can use. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like my web hosting platform, I have my supervisor, or I should say I have multiple dynamic supervisors, one that handles like podcast RSS feeds. So every organization on my server, if they have a podcast, they get their own dynamic server that fetches their podcast episodes from, you know, an RSS feed. And like same with, you know, Discord events, not really blog posts because that's just database data, but whatever you're doing, it kind of allows you to just create your process just for an individual organization, which is nice.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, especially if you need to fetch data from somewhere, keep it in memory, and kind of cache it, right, for the outside world. That's something super simple. Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. Thank you. Everyone go check out Run Elixir. Support Peter. He has so much awesome content out there, and his live streams are very technical, and you learn a lot. I like to jump on. And what was you just made a Twitch clone, right?
Yeah, there was I think last week Friday we kind of finished it. Like so we had 2 projects so far. One of them was the Blue Sky sentiment analysis pipeline, where we like connected to the Blue Sky Firehose API and got all their tweets, their posts basically. And then we used the BERT machine learning model to do some sentiment analysis. So we could say it's like a negative tweet or it's a positive tweet on every single one, and then we stored that with timescale DB and visualized it, you know, on the website.
That's awesome.
So there was the first one, and then we started with the second one, the Twitch clone, and we used Boombox for that, which is built on Membrane. That was pretty cool. Like we played around with Boombox a little bit. You know, I also actually contributed a little bit. Like I asked questions and raised some things that I ran into with the Membrane team, and they were super helpful with that.
Nice.
And
that's awesome.
But we kind of got stuck there last week, so now I'm thinking let's just move on to the next project. And whatever the next project will be, we don't know yet.
3D printing and
either 3D
sailboats.
printing, exactly. Either the Elixir boat or it's gonna be LiveView native. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. It's always good to have you on. So reach out anytime. And thank you everyone that tuned in. Hope you guys have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. And follow Peter. His details are in the description below.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good time.
See you guys.
Testing.